Egypt's President Sisi praises Qatar's leadership and rejects any breach of its sovereignty. The Iranian president affirms that Iran would respect the ceasefire as long as Israel does. In Egypt and Iran urge respect for the sovereignty of Gulf and Arab nations. You're watching Q News at 8. I'm Hani Saif, and in the news today, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has praised Qatar's leadership and rejected any breach of its sovereignty during a call with Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Al-Sisi expressed full support for Qatar's handling of the crisis and commended its military readiness, including its air defense systems against recent Iranian strikes. The two leaders also discussed regional tensions and diplomatic efforts to achieve a ceasefire between Iran, Israel, and Gaza. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has stated that Israel and its supporters aim to create dissatisfaction among the Iranian people. However, he emphasized that despite challenges, the nation remains united against the Israeli occupation. Pezeshkian accused the United States of directly participating in the Israeli crimes and attacking Iranian nuclear sites. Regarding the ceasefire, he affirmed that Iran would respect it as long as Israel does, expressing readiness for dialogue to achieve the legitimate rights of the Iranian people. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told Qatar that Tehran is committed to strengthening bilateral relations based on good neighborliness and mutual benefits. In a phone call with his Qatari counterpart, Araghchi clarified that Iran's recent missile attack on the U.S. Al Udeid airbase in Qatar was a legitimate act of self-defense, not directed against Qatar itself. He praised Qatar's constructive role in maintaining regional security and reaffirmed Iran's desire to be a good neighbor. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has emphasized the importance of respecting the sovereignty of Gulf and Arab nations and condemned any violations of their territorial integrity. That came during his call with the Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi, to discuss the latest regional developments. Abdulati welcomed the U.S. announced ceasefire, urging both Israel and Iran to adhere to it as a crucial step towards reducing tensions and restoring stability. The Iranian foreign minister affirmed respect for regional sovereignty and agreed to continue efforts to de-escalate the situation. Egypt has welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, calling it a key step towards de-escalation. In a statement, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry described the ceasefire as a potential turning point to halt regional confrontations. Cairo urged both sides to commit fully and exercise restraint. The ministry reaffirmed Egypt's support for diplomatic solutions and stressed that resolving the Palestinian cause remains vital for regional stability. Israel launched a strike on a radar site north of Tehran, hours after a ceasefire was set to begin, accusing Iran of firing missiles towards Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's office said Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke with U.S. President Trump, committing to halt further strikes. A White House source described Trump's call as exceptionally firm and direct. Iran's state media reported explosions near Bab al-Sar, north of Tehran, with emergency responders on site. The White House later said only one missile was launched and was likely a misfire. And for more analysis, we now move to Hela Al-Hamalawi in our newsroom. Hela.
Thank you very much, Hani. For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor, Mr. Ashraf Al-Ashri. Welcome to Q News, sir. And now we would like to begin by asking you, in what ways does Egypt's strong solidarity with Qatar indicate increasing Arab collaboration in confronting regional threats?
Welcome and greet you both. Egypt's stance in regards to supporting and full solidarity is clear. Even the yesterday's call and between President Sisi and Qatar's Prince reiterates Egypt's path to provide protection and support for our brotherhoods in Arab countries, and this is a part of Egypt's role as a strong pivotal country with qualifications and strength points to establish a cornerstone for stability in the Middle East, reflecting from the first moment its glorious stance and its rejection of what took place yesterday of launching missiles against the Qatari base. And Egypt condemned and fully rejected these practices towards Qatar, which is an Arab country and which was reiterated by President Sisi in his phone call with Qatar's Prince, and he hailed his role in the brokery in order to protect the Arab security, which is a role reiterating Egypt's presence for all people in this regard.
So what consequences arise from President Trump's confirmation that Iran provided advance notice prior to its attack on Qatar?
I think what Iran did was an attempt to lift the spirits of Iranian people after the attacks and strikes by Israel and the US in an attempt to destroy their 3 nuclear radiators. And of course, there is a large grade of fury because of the strikes, and therefore Qatar wanted to send a message for both the US and Israel that it has still have the power of missiles and military powers and can launch strikes for American military sites during like what it did in the last days, which was a big message that it will have a willingness and desire to targeting the sites in case it happens again. But it was a beginning of an Iranian-American dialogue to reach a path for a ceasefire, which was taking place yesterday, and President Trump announced a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, which came into effect since 7 a.m. and this morning, hoping to have a real American willingness in seizing the fire.
Well, considering U.S. assertions that Iran's nuclear infrastructure has been dismantled, how reliable is this evaluation, and what are the potential risks if it is incorrect?
For sure, all the indications regional and international indications confirm that U.S. Targeting for nuclear Iranian sites were largely destroyed and became out of work, and it cannot be into work again because the destruction. There are Iranian statements that they were managed during the last years to be able to withdraw before the strike. They declared that they were managed to withdraw all enrichment materials in another site. Therefore, we didn't find any risky impacts or environmental impacts after the strike on the 3 sites, which reflects that with the destruction, and it didn't actually reach the enriched uranium.
Okay. With Egypt and Qatar both supporting de-escalation, what viable diplomatic strategies are currently available to enforce and oversee a ceasefire between Israel and Iran?
I think the Arab and Egypt efforts with the U.S. cooperation, even the Qatar mediation, will encourage Iran and urge the going back to negotiation table with a number of guarantees to avoid the recurrence of this one more time, and also to find an end solution for uranium enrichment or not returning the nuclear program, and also making a new arrangements to de-escalate the tension and preserve the security in order to have a lasting ceasefire, in addition to put implementation to address tension by persuading Iran to be disarmed in order to avoid any violations in the area and to cut any attempts for Israel to retaliate.
So how probable is further Iranian retaliation, if we're speaking about retaliation, given the leadership's rhetoric and military stance after the U.S. and Israeli strikes?
I think there is no intention for Iran, whether soon or later, to go back to the war, especially that Iran declared its respect to the truce as long as Israel will respect them. In my opinion, Iran will not initiate a war because of their big destruction, because of the assassination and army, scientists and guards, and assassination of nuclear scientists because of Israel violations in Iran's security. In addition to that, the infrastructure was destructed. So therefore Iran needs a long time to rebuild and reform the destructions. And this will take many years.
Well, that was Mr. Ashraf El-Ashi from Cairo. He is Al Ahram newspaper managing editor. Thank you so much for joining us on Q News. Now we go back to Hani Saif in our studio to resume our bulletin. Back to you, Hani.
Thank you, Heda. Iran's health ministry reported that more than 600 people have been killed since Israel's initial attack on June 13th, with 107 deaths recorded on Monday alone. The majority of victims, about 95%, died immediately at the attack sites. Monday marked the deadliest day of the ongoing conflict, according to officials in Tehran. Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee has urged for peace and stability in the Middle East during a news conference. He called on the international community to resolve conflicts through diplomatic means and jointly safeguard global peace. Following recent developments, Hong Kong's government raised its outbound travel alert for Israel and Iran to the highest level, black, advising residents to avoid travel to both countries and prioritize their safety. The city's immigration department reported inquiries from 21 residents in Israel and Iran, with 20 having left safely. Qatar has condemned the missile strike on Al Udeid Air Base, calling it a blatant breach of sovereignty. Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari said the Iranian strike violated international law and damaged Qatar's role as a mediator. He reaffirmed Qatar's right to respond but stressed the need for renewed dialogue. Al-Ansari confirmed normal life has resumed, with only minor disruption from falling debris. Qatar has activated military plans to secure its airspace following the recent missile attack, closing skies to all flights. Major General Sheikh Sifr al-Hajri, Deputy Chief of Staff at the Defense Ministry, confirmed that all but one missile were intercepted. He said the airspace was shut to ensure the safety of incoming and outgoing flights as the armed forces implement full defensive protocols. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has called for an immediate ceasefire in West Asia and urged world leaders to convene a global peace summit. Maduro appealed to leaders including Donald Trump, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin to support a broad summit aimed at ending regional hostilities. He also called on groups like BRICS, CELAC, and the Non-Aligned Movement to press for peace. Maduro urged the UN to create a nuclear-free zone in the region and demanded disarmament steps targeting Israel. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said the recent U.S. strikes have destroyed Iran's nuclear infrastructure, making it incapable of building a nuclear weapon. Vance stated that just a week ago, Iran was close to obtaining a nuclear weapon, but now their ability to enrich uranium and develop a bomb has been obliterated. Vance emphasized the importance of diplomatic talks with Iran and Israel to secure long-term peace and prevent Iran from attempting to rebuild its nuclear program. He highlighted the message sent by the U.S. military's precision strikes, warning Iran against future nuclear ambitions.
Is that they're not going to try to rebuild that program. And I think that's what the president is really trying to figure out here, is to build a long-term...
Palestinians in Gaza City have voiced their concerns as Israeli occupation forces ordered new evacuations. The Israeli military dropped leaflets over several areas in North Gaza, ordering residents to leave their homes and head towards the south in what appeared to herald renewed Israeli military strikes against Hamas. Showing an evacuation order on his mobile phone asking to go to Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis, a Palestinian said he was tired of repeated evacuation orders. Dozens of Palestinians may have been killed in Gaza's Beit Lahia as Israeli forces opened fire near aid distribution points. Palestinian health workers say up to 50 people died and many more were injured as crowds gathered for desperately needed food amid widespread shortages. Witnesses report Israeli troops fired on civilians near military zones. The European Union has condemned possible Israeli rights violations, while Israel dismissed the bloc's report as a moral and methodological failure. UNRWA head Philippe Lazzarini has called for concrete steps towards a two-state solution and urgent aid for Gaza. Speaking in Berlin, Lazzarini warned of a deepening financial crisis that could force UNRWA to cut vital services for Palestinian refugees. He urged immediate international funding, emphasized the need for a ceasefire to enable reconstruction, and called for global commitment to making the two-state solution a reality.
Additional funding, I will soon have to take unprecedented decisions.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has called for a humane and balanced approach to the Gaza conflict, while voicing concern over Iran's nuclear ambitions. Speaking before lawmakers, Merz questioned Israel's objectives in Gaza and emphasized the protection of civilians, especially women and children. He also warned of the broader risks posed by Iran's nuclear escalation. His remarks drew strong applause, reflecting growing calls in Germany for restraint and accountability in the region. Dozens gathered at Mary Elias Church in Damascus to mourn 25 victims of a suicide bombing claimed by Daesh. Greek Orthodox Patriarch John Yazigi led a memorial mass, urging unity and faith after the deadly attack that also wounded over 60. Syria's Interior Ministry said a Daesh militant opened fire before detonating a vest. Security forces later killed 2 suspects and arrested 6 others, including the cell leader. Major General Deodato Abangara, new UNIFIL commander, stressed Lebanon's stability depends on broader regional dynamics during his handover ceremony in Naqoura. He called for stronger international coordination and highlighted UNIFIL's ongoing efforts to protect civilians, monitor ceasefires, and stabilize southern Lebanon under UN Resolution 1701. UNIFIL was created in 1978 to oversee Israeli withdrawal and expanded after the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah war. NATO and European Union leaders reiterated their firm commitment to supporting Ukraine during a press conference ahead of a NATO summit in The Hague. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte highlighted that European and Canadian partners have already pledged over 35 billion euros in aid this year, likely surpassing 2024's total. He stressed ongoing military and financial backing to ensure Ukraine remain strong against Russian aggression. European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced a 150 billion euro EU arms fund called SAFE, designed to finance Ukraine's defense industry and bolster long-term resilience. European Council President Antonio Costa praised Ukraine's reform efforts and expressed optimism about its EU accession prospects.
But also when the peace comes or a long-term
These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of today's main stories. Egypt's President Sisi praises Qatar's leadership and rejects any breach of its sovereignty. The Iranian president affirms that Iran would respect the ceasefire as long as Israel does. And Egypt and Iran urge respect for the sovereignty of Gulf and Arab nations. This concludes our news bulletin for now, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for watching.